Welcome to the Permission Slip podcast, where I, empowerment coach, mindset expert, and holistic nutritionist Carmen share with you the tools, conversations, and resources you need to write your own permission slip, take massive action, and become obsessed with your own life. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Permission Slip podcast. We have another amazing, beautiful, impactful roundtable for you today. We are talking about how to write your first book, navigating publishing, and success secrets with top writers and publishers and experts in the industry. So we are joined by two amazing humans today. The first is Cindy Childress, and she is the expert's ghostwriter. So she is a ghostwriter that can help you make your manuscript a gold mine. And we have Lauren Eckhart, and she is an author, ghostwriter, book coach, and CEO of Burning Soul Press. So much expertise that we have here. Welcome to the podcast, ladies.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so excited that you are both here. So what I'd like to do first is to get to know each of you a little bit, and then we'll just dive right into the juicy questions around writing and editing and publishing and how much does it cost and what should I do, and all of those answers that everybody's always asking, because this podcast is all about taking action. And so from this podcast, I know people are going to get all the answers that they need so they can take action. And we'll definitely learn about how to work with you as well. So Cindy, just a few quick questions I like to just do just to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Yes, I grew up in rural Tennessee in a place that is not even on the interstate. So you really wouldn't have gone there unless you intended to. It's not a place that you pass by.
How many people?
Currently 30,000, but when I was growing up, more like 15 to 18,000.
Wow. Okay. I thought my town was small. I think it's like 60,000 or something in Oregon. So, and now where do you live now? Tell us about that.
Houston, Texas, the fourth largest city in America.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard that it's huge, like just to navigate around the city. I've not actually been there. I have a niece that lives there though. So I've heard all about that.
Yes, it could literally take from where my business coach and friend Ron Reich lives to drive from there all the way to where my brother lives on the other side of Houston. It would be like an hour and a half. I mean, you could almost take a commuter flight faster.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to visit one day. So it's definitely on the list. So thank you for sharing that. Share with us what you had for breakfast this morning.
Well, I'm glad you asked because I had an acai bowl and it was so good. It was lemon berry.
Yum. My best friend, she loves those bowls. Do you put any particular toppings on it?
Yes, I love to get the chocolate chips.
Yeah. I think she's like a nut butter type person
Mm,
on the top or some sort of like granola. So
mm.
yeah, cool. I love that. Can you share with us one of your favorite things that you do to take care of yourself?
Okay, this is kind of funny, but I seriously take at least an hour or even an hour and a half long bath every day. Um, this morning, I think it was an hour and a half. I do that with, like today, it was a lavender bath salt. And I just really chill out because I know for the rest of the day, I have to quiet myself and be present for my clients and hold the container for whatever is going on with them. So that means I have to clear out all the stuff with me in the meantime. So and I also have a cat who likes to hang out with me. So I have a tray over the bathtub where I thought I would put my coffee and my book, but that's where my cat Principessa sits.
I love that so much. So tell me a little bit more about the details. Is there a certain lavender bath salt that you like to use, like a particular brand?
Let's see, I buy it from Amazon. It's in a big container. I would have to look at the brand actually, but I have it on subscription, so it arrives and I put it beside the
Nice.
bathtub.
I know. I used to be so adamantly against subscriptions, thinking like, I don't know, I just want to control everything. I think it was just about being in control. I freaking love subscriptions now. You don't run out of things, it just automatically comes. And the best ones are the ones though that email you and like, do you need to delay your shipment? My Purity coffee is like that. I was like, oh yeah, I haven't used it all. Give me the coffee in 2 weeks. And it just texts you and like, subscriptions are my jam now. So I love that you said
Same.
that. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, do you do any journaling or intentional reflection or meditation while you're taking your bath? And is it always in the morning?
So it is usually in the morning, and I do try to get in with some kind of an intention. I don't journal there because I'm also trying to give myself some time not to be generative. Like I tend to always
Mhm.
be, I'm always creating or
Yep.
editing, manipulating. And so in the bathtub, it kind of forces me to be off devices and off the pen and paper. I mean, I do have some nearby, so like I'll have a great idea. I can like grab and like write down the idea, but otherwise, generally, it's just me just trying to chill out and clear my mind. Sometimes I'll do a guided meditation, and I have an EFT coach for tapping, so I might do some of her strategies and yeah, just kind of self reflect.
So beautiful. And I think that that's so important. Often we think that we're giving ourselves a break or having downtime, but we're still like producing an outcome of some sort. So it's so nice just to be able to relax without having to worry about producing an outcome. But I heard a writer's tip there, like have it handy because you never know when you're going to be inspired. Okay. So last question for you is if you had to pick one book to recommend to everyone, not your own, what would it be and why?
I would say Joseph Heller's Catch 22. It's a novel, and I don't work with fiction writers, but what I want to say about that book is it is written brilliantly. He takes the theme of the Catch 22, which is kind of, everybody kind of knows what that is, and then extends it into this book that is funny and satirical and totally still applicable today, even though it was written for, like a Vietnam protest generation about World War II. And it really stands the test of time. So I think it's just a masterpiece in how to write something that is in common everyday language that can reach and have ripple effects far beyond the moment that you're writing it.
I love that so much. And was the last name Heller with an H or Keller with a K?
Heller with an H, you got it.
Okay, Joseph Heller, Catch 22. I love that. And that sparked another question that we'll chat about a little bit later, too. So thank you so much and welcome to the podcast. And we'll move on over to Lauren and get to know you a little bit. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in similar small town, no stoplight, that sort of thing, in the boot hill of Missouri, in a little town called Bernie. But
Okay.
fourth grade, we moved to Central Illinois. So I kind of go off of Illinois since I spent more of my fourth grade and on from there,
Yeah. And where are you at now?
outside Nashville, Tennessee.
Mm, my husband and I have been really just having that on our list. For some reason, it keeps coming up that we're supposed to come visit.
Yeah.
And I connected with a new client and member of my community just recently at an event in Denver. And like all these things keep coming up around Nashville. I feel like I'm supposed to like host an event or do something there soon. So
Please, please
anyway, more
come
more to
here.
come. Yeah, yeah. Our signature event this year is going to be in September in Oregon. And if you've never been to Central Oregon to Bend, like it is so beautiful, especially in September. So
That is
something to
wonderful.
think
It's
about.
actually on my list this year because I have a friend out there. So
Oh, I'll keep you connected once
yes,
we have all the details for sure. So
awesome.
tell us what you had for breakfast this morning.
I had oatmeal with nut butter. So always the
Okay.
almond butter, banana, chia seeds, and flaxseed.
It sounds like me. So, okay, what type of oats do you use? Instant, still cut, regular, rolled oats?
Instant, because I'm usually in a rush with the kids in the morning. So it's
Okay,
like,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, tell us about your kids. What are the ages?
5 and 8,
Boys,
two
girls.
boys, two
Mm.
boys, everything's
Oh,
Yeah, they are just the best. And boys are just wonderful. They take care of their mama. So when I was sick
Mhm.
a couple of weeks ago, and they were there taking care of me, hugging
Mm,
water. They are just the sweetest.
how adorable. I love that. Do you ever do overnight oats since you're in a hurry?
I have tried it. So most of the overnight oats are like cold though, right? Because
You could heat it up though in the microwave.
maybe I should try that because I'm like, I just get
Mhm.
the cold oats, especially when it's cold out. Like I have to have that warm breakfast that really,
Mhm.
I will try it.
Yeah, so something that I used to do was like in the fall, especially adding like pumpkin and like pumpkin pie spice and cinnamon and stuff to it, like actually just like canned pumpkin, not the sugary stuff, but it's so delicious. But what I found is that the oats and the chia seeds and the flax really soak up. And so add a little bit of extra liquid when you heat it up, and it kind of produces that same consistency. And if you liked it, it would save a lot of time because you could do it on Sunday and then have it ready for the whole week.
I love that idea. I will try
Mhm.
that this week.
Mhm, mhm. Do you ever add protein powder to add a little bit more
Yes, I
protein?
do. Yep, with protein
Mhm,
too. Always.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I do the same thing too. I went to a networking event this morning. So I actually cooked mine the night last night with chia seeds, flaxseed, egg whites. Like I mixed egg whites in there for the protein, and it made it like so like voluminous. Just a half cup filled like a whole mason jar. So it was really delicious. And I just ate that on my way to the early morning networking. So
It's just filling. Like it helps me.
mhm.
Like I've had a morning full of meetings and I've just been happy. My stomach's not growling during the meeting, so it's definitely my go-to.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking about in some high performance habits yesterday and taking care of yourself. One of my core beliefs is that you can only reach your dreams and goals to the level your body can take it. So I was like, everybody needs 2 tablespoons of chia seed or flaxseed every day. Your body will thank you because your digestion will be so good.
Yes, totally agree.
Tell us about one of your favorite self care things that you do that you practice.
Walking. Same thing with being in front of the computer, devices, all of that, with writing and then helping on the developmental edit side. I feel like it's just easy to sit and be in front of the computer. So, like, really making sure I get out and I walk, and it's just usually my downtime to collect my thoughts and to pray during that time and listen to some music that's uplifting and helps kind of recenter where I'm at in the day because you never know what you're going to read sometimes, right, Cindy, throughout your day. And, being a natural empath too, like it's so easy just to get like caught into the stories and feeling the same heavy emotions. So it's so important to be able to take breaks from that and just recenter yourself and where you're at.
So important. I never thought about that. I never thought about how deeply invested you get, as a coach or ghostwriter, editor, and how that could feel just taking on someone else's emotionally charged energy through their words. Cause I think about reading and wow, yeah. So do you go outside, treadmill, how long, when? Like, is it morning, afternoon, or is there something specific that you do?
It depends on the weather, honestly. Like when it's colder right now, usually it's going to be more in the afternoon or around lunchtime, but I try to go for 30 to 45 minutes.
Mhm.
And it's just walking our neighborhood more than anything else and just listening. I've got different playlists I have on Spotify. So just again, ones that just uplift my spirit. And like I said, just really just walking and praying and looking at the beautiful sights of Tennessee. That's the nice part. It's the scenery
Mhm.
here. And there's like a couple of small farms with horses. And so when I see the horses, it just makes me happy.
Are you in
Mm.
the Spring Hill area by any chance?
Yes, Thompson Station.
I knew it. It's
Yeah. Is that
rolling
what you were
hills and
talking
horse
about?
barns. Yeah.
Was it Spring Hill then?
Oh, no, no, no. The other
Oh,
side of Nashville, further out from Hendersonville.
okay. I was wondering. I was trying to figure it out when you were talking. Yep.
I love that connection, and I love walking outside if no one, if you take nothing else away from this, get outside and walk every single day. It's such a reset. And if you're getting stuck creatively, just to get outside, get in nature. Sometimes I don't even listen to anything. I actually call it my God walks that I do every day. And God could mean whatever to anybody else. I'm of Christian faith, but it could be spirit, universe, your grandpa talking to you, whatever. But it's like that's when the downloads come in, especially when you start moving your energy again. So when you're sitting down all day long, our bodies are made of energy and it's meant to move. And so when you get outside and get connected, you get that good dopamine and it works for me every time. Same is true. Like I'll just go out to our pool deck. I'm in Miami Beach, so I'll go out to our pool deck. And I used to think I'm going to bring my journal or my book. And same with you, Cindy, like that time, like I just lay out there for 30 minutes. You could also lay on your bed or lay on your couch and just relax and not do anything or produce anything, and the best creative thoughts come in, and I'm not even really asking for them. So it's so important to take those breaks. Okay, last question is book that you would recommend, fiction, nonfiction, not your own.
That's so hard because I feel like it's always seasonal, like with what's going on and all the specifics. I'm gonna pick this one because it's right next to me because I like what it does too. Victorious Emotions. One of the
Mm.
best books to really understand, any past emotions you've had, current emotions you have, why you respond the way that you do, all of that. But when I read books like this, what I love is that it makes me think, of course, my own things and helps me work through them. But then since I do both fiction and nonfiction, I always look at like, okay, so when you're writing about a character and you have all of those layers, pulling things out from even books like this to add the depth to the characters that you build as well, and then the plot and the storyline. So I love it because it works both ways for real life and fiction life.
I love that. Thank you for recommending that. Understanding our emotions is so important. I was just talking about that earlier. It's along with finance, along with relationships, along with communication, understanding our emotions. Those aren't things that we're really taught in school. We're taught these subjects that we have to memorize, but we're not taught how to relate with ourselves, with our creator, with other people. And emotions are so fun, but we usually bypass them. And if we can sit with them for 90 seconds, we can really understand what's happening and respond versus react. So I
Well,
love that so
and
much.
emotions connect us together, like
Mhm,
all go
mhm.
through different experiences, but it's based off the emotions that we're feeling that really connect us all together and help us relate with each other. So it's so
Yeah.
important.
And that's just like books. That's
Yeah,
why books are so important.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive into some of the nuts and bolts of this. So, Lauren, I'll start with you since we started with Cindy last time. But if I have a really good book idea, like I'm supposed to be writing this book, what would be my first step, my first few steps to get started? What would you recommend? I mean, I know there's so many things to it, but
Number one, it's so important to try to get as much clarity as possible when that idea does come to you. And so one of the best ways I would say is to, always do the brain dump if you want. There's a lot of ideas going through. I just jot down whatever ideas that are coming to you. If it's your memoir and you're thinking about a lot of individual stories that are coming to you, just write them down and get whatever is going on up here down on paper, even if it looks messy. A lot of people start in when they have this book idea, they think they just need to go in and start writing. And I'm a pantser by default, so I get that too. But it gets harder to sort through when you're like, I have no direction, right? I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know what the point of this is. So then they start to feel overwhelmed with the whole process. So when you're able to kind of get some of those main ideas down, the next thing I always say is you want a theme behind your book. Because again, you have to know why you are writing this book. What is the purpose? What is that ultimate message that you want everyone to receive, or at least as many people as possible when they read your book? Where are you going, right? It's like the North Star of your life, your direction. You have to know where you're going. And then what's really important, you can go into audience, you can do all of that. But one of the things I really want to hit on up front too is knowing how you plan on delivering that message. You want to know your own voice and what that is. Because a lot of times too, you're going to be reading all these other books that might be similar. and you're going to think that you have to write like another author that you've read about before. And that's not the case. If you're writing something that is meaningful to you and it's representative of who you are, even if it's fiction, though, honestly, like know your unique voice and trust that and identify what that is.
I love those. Thank you so much for sharing. The part about the voice, I think, is really big. Something that I worked really hard on when I left my corporate career to come into my coaching and teaching and speaking business was not writing so professionally. In school, I'm taught to write so professionally, and in my corporate job, so professionally. And so I went all the way on this other side to write how I speak.
Mhm.
But then what was happening as I was writing my book over the last year or so, 6 months, I'm finding that I want a beautiful marriage of both. Like, I want there to be depth, but I also want there to be fun and my own personality. So refinding what that voice truly is and how I want to be able to connect with people that I'm trying to connect to. And so what I logically thought it was going to be, right, how you speak and how you connect with people, I was like, but I want some of that professional voice in there too. So thank you for sharing that. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to that, Cindy?
Yeah, well, actually, I like to start with who the target reader is and who
Mhm.
you're writing the book for, just because if you don't have that clarity and you're just, especially for nonfiction, and you're thinking, what is everything that I know? Well, of course, you are an expert. Your knowledge is vast and wide. But when you're thinking about who am I writing for, where are they along the path to solving the problem that I help them solve, and what help is it that I want to give them, and even thinking about this vis-a-vis your business and your offers, to think for the reader of this book, where do I want them to be at the end of the book, such that they're ready to continue learning from me and working with me in whatever way is going to make sense next. So with all these thoughts in mind, you're going to be able to sit down and look at an outline for your book, and it's going to be much more tailored to this reader, instead of everything and think. It's like, what do I need to share with them? What will they be receptive to? What's over their head? What's like, maybe they already know that, so I don't have to go over it. And with all those decisions, when you get to the drafting process, it's much more easy to sit down and write as if you're writing an email to a best friend, or you're writing a love letter to this target reader. Sometimes that's what I tell people to think about, because it's just a conversation from you to that one person, rather than you and trying to fit it into what your mentors and your mother and your clients are all going to want. It's much easier. And the one thing I'll say too, because I do have a PhD in English with a creative dissertation, so I'm always on the classic literature. But if you think about Mark Twain, his book, Huckleberry Finn, is written so that a child can read it. So he chose a reader so a child can read that book. However, there's also a second layer of jokes that will go right by a child that an adult will get. So even though he wrote it for one reader, he also made room for other readers there. So that's just an example of craft and how you can, with a very niche audience, also widen your scope.
I love that so much. And I think that's so important to understand. So I first started just writing everything that I could think of. And then I wrote down all these coaching principles and these life lessons, and then these, Bible, but like things that work together. And then I realized like this book that I'm writing is actually like 4 books. And I need to scale it back to exactly what you were talking about, is like one lesson, one key idea to one reader. And then then I can write a series of books. And how exciting is that? And it's going to have so much more clarity, and it's going to hit home so much more with that particular audience. Okay, so we have our clarity, we figured out our voice and our target reader. And so now what do we do? Like, what kind of help is available? What do the steps look like, Cindy? Like, what happens next? Like, I'm starting to write, but I don't really know what to do next.
Yeah, well, Lauren is a book coach and I have an author mentorship. So you do not have to write alone. I also have a membership group that's, less one-on-one attention and more kind of group training. So there are lots of different ways that you can have some guidance and accountability with an expert who's been there and can hold your hand. And then once you have your draft written, I know Lauren mentioned developmental editing. The next stage is usually working with a developmental editor to take this messy first draft, which everyone's is messy, even Stephen King's, and start crafting it and moving things around so they flow better and making those editing decisions that are really hard to make when you're writing and you're just getting it out onto paper, but they become really easy to make once everything's written and you're taking that bird's eye view. And then after that would be a copy edit, which is more kind of going sentence by sentence and line by line, looking at the word choice and how the sentences are flowing inside of the paragraphs and then inside of each sentence. And of course, good old fashioned punctuation. Um, and then in terms of publishing itself, of course, there's self-publishing and traditional publishing. So you may be pursuing a literary agent to work with, and with a traditional publishing path, um, that can take, I know I'm getting ahead of your questions, but it's really
That's
kind of all
okay.
in one thing,
Yeah.
that can easily take 1 to 2 or even 3 years. So this is after you've got your manuscript, and if it's nonfiction, you're also going to have a book proposal, which hopefully you're working on in tandem with writing your book. That's what I teach people to do who are going to pursue traditional publishing. And then if you're like, that just sounds like way too much time and effort, and I don't even know that I want that, then traditional publishing can, you still want to go through all those editing steps and work with a professional graphic designer on your book. That's really important because it's possible these days when you're working with editors and designers that you can have a book that looks and feels like any other book in Barnes and Noble, even though yours is self-published rather than published by a big publishing house. So there is lots of flexibility in how you do it, and there are companies that do all that for you. That's what I mean by hybrid publishers. So you can pay someone to take all the work off your plate, and they usually will include an Amazon bestseller launch. And if you're more of a DIY person, you can do all of that on your own and just hire specific contractors as you would like.
Wow, we're going to unpack some of that because that was a lot, but it was so thorough, and I really, really appreciate that because that's giving an overview of what we're about to unpack, and it's so important. And so the first thing that I have found anyways in writing my book is writing every day. Making sure that I'm getting in the habit, and this is something that Lauren and I talked about when we first met, is like just get in the habit of making sure that you're writing every day to be in the practice of writing, to be a writer. Because if you want to be a writer, you have to write. If you want to be a speaker, you have to speak. If you want to be a basketball star, you have to practice basketball. So you have to write. And some of those options that you talked about, I want here people to understand is the accountability is really big. Yeah, we can all set goals and really push forward, but having a book coach or having a membership group, like it sounds like I know Lauren had one, it sounds like you have one, Cindy, where you can just show up and you can write and you can be accountable in a community and feel supported is really, really important. So I wouldn't want people to neglect that step. Often we feel like, oh, I need to do it all by myself or have all the answers. And that's so untrue. One of the biggest growths that I have is like, I don't need to know everything. I know that there's experts that know it. I want to know what I know and be experts at my thing. And I want you to be an expert at your thing. So let's say that we join a membership or we get a book coach and we have our initial manuscript. And I want to go back to something that Cindy said, Lauren, is can you talk a little bit about like, when do I need to do a book proposal? And when don't I do a book proposal? And then do I have to have my manuscript done in order to do a book proposal? And what is that for?
Yeah. So book proposals are primarily for nonfiction books. And really what it does, it's a kind of a more of an aerial perspective on the book itself that you're writing. It's going to, introduce what the target audience is, the genre, a blurb about what the book is about, and then really a summary of each chapter as you go through it. And the whole point of it is that many times, if you're going through a traditional publisher, like Cindy was saying, they don't really want to see the manuscript without seeing the book proposal first, because then from the book proposal, they can decide if they're even interested in reading the manuscripts. But it gives a breakdown too of the author and anymore these days, the social media platform, and all of the audience, the community that they already have so they can see, is this book something that not only will be hot on the market, but obviously one that I can sell pretty easily as well.
Now, can I, as just me as an individual, submit my book proposal to traditional publishing houses, or how does that work?
Not usually, unless they have open
Mhm.
submissions, which rarely happens anymore.
Mhm.
You do need a literary agent first. So the first process is finding a literary agent, and that is submitting queries to them, those who are open to receiving them. And you also want ones that represent your genre. They know the market, they know it inside and out. So that way they can come in and really advocate for your book, because they are the ones that are then selling them to the publishing houses to try to get picked up. But when you find a literary agent, that process alone, like Cindy was saying with the whole traditional publishing, can be 1 to 3 years. First part is even finding a literary agent, and that can take submission after submission after submission to even find it. And then they go through your book, they make recommendations on edits that your book might need to be able to then go and sell it to a publishing house. So that whole process is pretty long and hefty. And
Mhm.
there are some really cool processes. Cindy, I can't think off that. There's like Twitter hosts or X now, hosts one that's really good. Do you remember what that's called?
Host one what?
It's
Not
like
sure.
you can go on and on X. I'm gonna keep saying Twitter because that's what I'm used to when I was doing
Me
it.
too.
And you could actually, so it's like this, I think, a week-long process or something like that, maybe a few days, but you can actually pitch your book, and literary agents are active on that day. And then if you pitch it and they're interested in it, they might then ask to see the first 25 pages of your manuscript or the full manuscript. So it's a great way to have a lot of eyes on your pitch of your manuscript in hopes to pick up a literary agent. And it's a quicker process too, instead of like submitting, and then like keeping your fingers crossed and checking your email 50 times a day, waiting on a response.
Yeah, that's an awesome tip. I just Googled it really quick and it looks like I don't know that it has the dates for 2024. Someone could look it up, but they call it pitch
Pitch,
parties.
yes, yes.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So
That's such a
yeah.
good tip. I love that so much. So, and is your pitch something that you would help people with, like as a book coach, like help people
Yes.
find, with that pitch?
Mhm.
Now, if I wanted to go down the traditional publishing route, what are some things that I should do as an individual, as a brand, as a writer, in order to position myself for the publishing house to say yes?
Number
Cindy, do
one,
you want to? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
if
Please.
I mean, you have to know the market you're going into. You have to know your genre. You have to know how your book compares with other similar titles out there, especially ones that are selling. Because one of the best ways you're going to get in front of people is by like doing that mashup of my book is like this and this together, right? Because then that gets people's attention. Like I said, you have to have these days, especially, I mean, it's really shifted over the like past 10, 15 years, maybe, Cindy, but it's very platform focused anymore. So not only does it have to be relevant to the times, but they want to know, again, is this book going to be something that sells? So they want you to have a lot of followers, but not just followers, active followers. They want the engagement to be there. If you happen to make the news or some other platform from some story in your book, that will help to get you in front of people. It'll get their attention. You have to be visible really anymore to have a higher chance of the book selling. Are there still ones that slide in? Absolutely. Absolutely. But you have to know how to market your book. And a lot of authors don't want to hear that. They want to hear all I have to do is write. Anything with marketing is separate. And that's not the case. You have to come in with a perspective of how am I going to reduce my entire book and everything that I've poured into it into like a one-line pitch, for example, to get people's attention. And how am I going to really give them the words, the language to set the foundation to be able for them to be able to promote my book as well.
Mm. So important. Yeah. I've heard from friends that have written books and been very successful that the most challenging part was the marketing piece of it. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to the traditional publishing route, Cindy, and how you can really position yourself to for them to say yes? And then also could you piggyback on that? If they do say yes and it's a traditional publishing house, they don't just do all the marketing for you, right?
Not at all. And this was the perfect question because I teach a framework called the authority ecosystem. And it's something that I guide all my clients through, whether they want to publish traditionally or whether they know they're going to self-publish. Because with the authority ecosystem, you're building your own audience, which you're going to be capturing on an email list, which means you have to have a lead magnet that gets them onto your email list. And then you have to be promoting this lead magnet. So that means doing things like what we are now and being on podcasts to talk about your topic of expertise and having media features, which will often give you one link and making sure that link is going to your lead magnet and speaking. And when you speak, you're usually always at least able to offer something free to the audience, make that same lead magnet, and have a presence on at least one social media platform, again, where you're building an audience. And keep doing this from the moment that you get your idea, if not long before. And usually when you look at people, especially their debut books are, say, New York Times bestsellers, how did that happen? Well, it's not magic. It's like 5 to 10 years of doing what I just said and building an audience, building their reputation as the go-to person on their topic. So when it comes up, you're the first person that lots of people think about and talk about. And then the other thing is on the marketing and promotion plan part of the book proposal, this is something you should also be doing throughout the entire book process, such as networking with other people in your field who would be ambassadors for your book and help you get the word out. And looking like numbers matter, engagement matters too. So just keeping track of those analytics, even things like your most popular posts on this or that topic and the engagement there. And I worked with a client who was she had a website development background, and we got really deep into the analytics and data from her blogs. And that book proposal was so smart. That's what I tell all my clients to do now, because that's another extra layer of homework, like what Lauren mentioned about the book positioning and really knowing the marketplace and the conversation that your book is entering. And when you have your own data from your own audience, you're building even more value because you're teaching them something they may not know about this large group of people that want to hear from you on your topic.
Wow, such important information because I think people see, New York Times bestselling author or whatever the case may be, and it's a lot of work for that to happen and a lot of things behind the scenes and a lot of years and patience. I have made the commitment to myself that I do want to do a book proposal and I do want to go after a traditional publishing deal, which I know I need to be patient for. And I know that I need to have all of these ducks in a row. So I'm really positioning myself as I'm growing my audience and growing my scope in order to be in a really good position for that. So thank you for sharing that. But there are other publishing opportunities as well. For example, someone could publish a book on Amazon. They could hire someone off of Fiverr or Upwork to help format the pages and make an amazing cover that stands up with all the New York Times best-selling covers and publish it on Amazon KDP. But could you talk a little bit, Cindy, about the hybrid model? What does that look like?
Sure. So with a hybrid model, you are hiring a company to do your book cover design, the interior formatting. And when I say interior formatting, what I mean is your book isn't printed and it looks just like your Word document. What happens is each page, with the page number and all the paragraphs, and there's something called an orphan. So on a paragraph, if there's like one word on the next line and that's the end of the paragraph, those are a no-no. So all these little things that need to be adjusted before your book is printed. And then there's uploading your book for print, which most hybrid publishers are going to be using Ingram Spark. And you can also do that as an individual. You don't have to go through a hybrid publisher for Ingram Spark. But what Ingram Spark allows you to do is very quickly and easily list your book in the database that librarians look at to order books. One of my clients found out her book was available to check out at the Boston Library, which was pretty cool. And you can list your book for sale almost everywhere online that books are available, including places like Target.com and Walmart.com, include, the obvious Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So they also do electronic book distribution as well as the print one. And they do what's called print on demand, EOD. And with this, you're not having to commit to buy thousands of books and have them in your garage and mail them out one at a time and schlep them to this event and that event. The Ingram Spark and whoever you're going through for your hybrid publishing publishes your book when somebody orders it. So there's not a large backlog of product that you're responsible for. And that's really changed the game and made it a lot easier for people to self-publish in the first place. So that's what hybrid publishers will do. And then I mentioned the Amazon bestseller launch. So there's a really smart app called Publisher Rocket that helps you find out at any given time. I know, Lauren, I bet you're on there all the time. I sure am. And how many books are selling in different categories on Amazon, so that you can place your book in categories more favorable to you possibly hitting bestseller. You don't want to pick a category that you only needed to sell 2 books to sell more than anybody, because nobody's looking for that category anyway. So there's a bit of a numbers game that the hybrid publisher, will play for you, and probably also send your book out to their list for promotion as well, to really hedge your bets on getting that bestseller status. Now, I'm going to say, aside from this, there are hybrid publishers that will also guarantee things like USA Today bestseller. I think the Wall Street Journal paused their bestseller list, but you used to be able to pay enough money, maybe $60,000, $80,000, and you could be guaranteed a spot there. So it really runs the gamut.
Wow. Thank you so much. Lauren, what do you have anything? And I want to go back to budget as well, because that was something that I uncovered when I was interviewing book coaches and memberships and editors and hybrid publishing houses, that I need to have a book budget for this. It's not like $100. It's not like $1,000. It's going to be a lot more than that. So having a book budget, but what could you add, Lauren, to the hybrid versus self-publishing conversation before we go into budget?
I think number one, and I mean, this is kind of related to budget, this first thought at least, is that this is a business. Publishing a book is opening your own business, and many people, that scares people away. But if you want it to be successful, you have to treat it the same way. I have people who come in who are like, okay, I wrote the book, it's getting published, it's the finish line. And I'm like, no, this is a ribbon cutting right now. This is what this is. Your book is out for the rest of your life and beyond your life, like, you have to really take care of it if you want it to succeed, / if you want to reach the people that you wrote the book for in the first place, if you want to make that impact. It's just the beginning of everything you need to pour into it. I know we didn't really hit much on the writing part in itself, but I do want to say quickly, like, writing a book is hard. people, I think, come in and they have this like very romantic notion of it. I'm just going to light a candle and all the words are going to come and it's going to be beautiful. And it's not. It's hard. It's gritty. You have to be disciplined. You are going to hate your book multiple times. You will hate it and then love it and then hate it. You'll have to read it so many times that you never ever want to see it again, but you will fall in love with it again. It's just a process. It's really a real relationship through the ups and downs that you're going to have with this book, especially if you want it to be something big, if you want to make an impact, if you want it to be high quality, right? So you have to be prepared with that. And having people surround you that are other writers, like with the membership, with any of our coaching programs, whatever it might be, that is going to be the way you succeed, because you have other people who get what you're going through and who can champion you and tell you to keep going. And they can talk about the other side, but they can also talk about the struggle through it, but how it's so worth it. So going off of that, when your book gets published, I mean, it's all continuation of that. You want to be done because you feel so tired writing, but it's just the beginning of what's to come. But it's all about that mindset, that perspective. You have to be so passionate about your book because you're going to be the one talking about it more than anyone else. And with that comes the confidence, the conviction for why you wrote the book in the first place. You have to stand strong in that and not back off, because you're going to be stepping outside of your comfort zone, because you're not meant to do all of the things that are needed for this book to be successful. So that's the hybrid and the self-publishing. As a self-publisher, you can come on and you can do all of those roles. You can find a book cover designer, you can find the interior designer, you can find resources. We have a whole self-publishing guide available for anyone who wants to take that on, like to walk them through all the process, everything that they need to know. But to be fair, it's exhausting because you're teaching yourself how to do things that you've never done before. And the whole time you're doubting yourself. Is this right? Is this right? Is this right? So when you bring in the hybrid publisher, which is one of the things Burning Soul Press does, we work as a hybrid publisher. That's us coming in with the genres that we represent, that we have become experts in, meaning nonfiction, memoir, self-help, inspirational books only. We don't do fiction books for that reason. We have our very specific market that we study and we stay on top of. And so that way we can be experts in this and come in and be like, hey, this is what's hot right now. This is what's popular. If you're starting from the beginning, we can help you in shaping your book idea to fit what's out there with, the message that you want to be able to deliver, the target audience, all of that. And then also, like, this is what it takes to be successful. Looking at the market, looking at competing books, looking at the keywords and all the categories like Cindy was talking about. There's so many little software things that you can look into to help it show up in the search engine when people are searching for the topic of your book, because that's really what it boils down to, especially as a first-time author. You need to be found. I think a lot of people come in and go, once I put my book out there, it's just going to start flying. Well, Cindy, you might be able to help me with this because I'm sure it's increased. I know like 2 years ago, the statistic was like 5,000 books are published per day on Amazon or something outrageous. And so it's like, how can you expect your book just to be automatically seen? There's a lot that has to go in there with the keywords and everything else and the positioning of it. So all that being said, hybrid publishers basically come in as, almost like a project manager, taking that stuff off of your plate so you don't have to, and you can just focus on the things that you need to do. They can also consult you on promotion things like, how do I get my message out there? How do I get my book out there? So you're being coached, you're being guided throughout the entire process.
I love that so much. One of my intentions for this year is really focusing on, we've all heard of the 80-20 principle, and really focusing each day on my wins and working in the 20% that only I can do. And so I'm testing myself with that. Anytime I'm asking myself the question, how do I do something? I'm then turning it to, who do I need to help me with this? And so just like you were talking about with publishing on Amazon, can you do it? Could anybody do it? Can I get on Google? Can I figure it out? I published a journal on Amazon a couple of years ago, and I hired someone on Upwork to do like the page design and stuff. Is it exactly how I wanted? No. Did it take me submitting to KDP a number of times, which is Amazon's publishing house? Yes. Was it like grueling and I hated it? Yeah. Could someone else have helped me with it and it would have been so much better? Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that I went through that experience because now I know if I wasn't making the decision to get a literary, find a literary agent and go the traditional route first, then hybrid publishing would definitely be the way that I would go for sure, 100%. Well, let's have a conversation about budget now. So, what would you say, Cindy, I would need to budget if I'm going to publish my book on Amazon? What would I need to budget if I'm going to, and of course, this is just general, right? Approximate, hybrid. And then what about like if I go to traditional publishing, like do they always pay me or how does that work?
Yeah, I'm going to unpack this in reverse order. So, when you work with
Please.
a traditional publisher, they may offer you an advance, which might be $10,000 if you're a nonfiction author and this is your first book, especially if they're taking a chance on you because you have a really smart topic and you have a really smart plan around your book, but your audience isn't as big as what they might hope to see. Um, then that's really you may not get any advance at all. $30,000 is a lot these days for nonfiction in particular for a first book. So after that amount, though, you may not be paid anything else as your book is selling because in those book publishing contracts, there will be a number that you have to hit and you don't make any more royalties until you hit that number of book sales. And off the top of my head, I don't want to misspeak. So let's just say hypothetically that it's like 2,500. Well, most nonfiction books, even traditionally published, sell about 400 to 500 copies. So that's far away from 2,500. So when you look at that statistic, most likely, like most average nonfiction authors don't make more money after that initial payout if they have one. And then when you think about hybrid publishing, the way I've usually seen it done and the way I advise my clients to go is to find someone who you're paying them to do the things that a traditional publisher would be doing for you. And you own the copyright to your book, which means if you want to change it later, have a new edition, give someone permission to republish a chapter, anything like that, you don't have to talk to anybody but you because you own the copyright. If you're traditionally publishing, the book publishing house will own that copyright, and they could be licensing someone to republish one of your chapters without you even knowing it happened. And maybe that's fun, but just know that going in. But you make all your royalties with a hybrid publisher when you retain the copyright. There are hybrid publishers out there that may charge a little bit less money, and then they take a percentage of your royalties. I'm not a big fan of that approach. I think it's more straight up and easier, and you stay more in control of your book when you work with someone. And Lauren's now nodding your head, so I think your press does it this way. I'm not surprised. I think it's the most ethical way to do it. You hire them, they do the work, and then it's yours, and you make all the money on the royalties. And then, which is also really motivating for you to sell your book when you're getting those royalty checks every month. And then when you completely DIY, I mean, you could do that for as little as $500 probably, just, going with people on Fiverr or Upwork, and you may be perfectly happy. There's a time and money balance to be had. So the more money you spend, the more of other people's time instead of your time is required. So I will mention one client I have though, who came through my Crank Out Your Book in 8 Weeks program, who had a friend to edit her book at a sweetheart deal, and then worked with someone on Upwork to format the interior and do the cover. And then she uploaded it to Ingram Spark herself, and she spent just around $4,000.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate all of that. Lauren, could you add to that? Like, how much do you think we should budget on average for a hybrid publisher? And I remember speaking to Lauren about her Burning Soul Press, and I remember like retaining the rights to my book and all those good things that you recommended, Cindy. And then also too, I don't want us to forget about, even if we go with traditional publishing, we still might need to come out of pocket because there's probably going to be some marketing or PR that we're going to need to pay for because they're not going to pay for that. Is that right?
Yeah, depending on, I mean, anymore they expect you to, I mean, they will have a budget, of course, but they will also want your own marketing plan and what you also plan to do to market your book. So they want to make sure that you are as invested as what they are, essentially, so that it doesn't look on them. As far as the cost too, one thing I want to add is that editing is the most expensive part of whether you self-publish or hybrid publish. And again, I think Cindy mentioned it earlier, you even want to do it if you're doing traditional publishing because you want this book polished. You want it to be able to really stand out among the stack of other books that they're receiving to show that you are serious, you're committed, this book looks good and is ready for them. So even with them doing their own editing, they want to see something that's cleaned up and ready to go, right? They don't want to spend as much time on it either. So editing, no matter what route you take, is the best investment you can make for your book, honestly. And Cindy talked, she did a great job about the different levels of editing that you need. Developmental editing is usually the priciest, but it's going to be the one that makes the biggest difference on your book. So it's the one to not skimp on at all, as is like proofreading, because you want to make sure it's like polished, it looks good, it's ready to go. And then of course, line editing is great. They're all important, but no matter what, you want to invest in that. So editing price is always going to range based off of your word count at the end of your book. So that can be anywhere. I mean, if you're looking at like 3 different levels, it can be anywhere from, I'm going to say 2,500 for like quality, and even that might be low, all the way up to 10,000 easily. Again, you're looking at quality, and one of the things you want to do when you're finding an editor is proof of what they've done before. Again, you want them to know your genre and that they've worked in it before. And then you also want them to do a little sample on your book. What will they catch? What sort of things might they recommend? And does that feel like it's actually going to improve your book? Editing is hard. Getting that feedback is hard. I've written 7 of my own books, 6 of other clients, and no matter what, every time I'm like, okay, like I'm going to take a step back and receive this feedback and then be able to apply it. That makes the book better because when editors are coming in, they're really looking at it as what did you have up here versus what actually came out on the pages. So I can't stress that enough. No matter what you do, get an editor. So that's the cost there. Like Cindy said, as far as what you spend on like the interior formatting and the cover design, depends again on the quality. A lot of time book covers can be anywhere from $250 to up to $1,500. Interior formatting, same thing. You know, it can be $50 or it can be $500. It depends on the design you want. It depends on the layout. Having it done for an ebook is different than a print book. Totally different way that the book is read in the system. So it's really important to know that. So with hybrid publishing in itself, depends on the package that they offer. Ours personally at Burning Soul Press is $15,000, but that includes 4 rounds of editing, the cover design, interior design, the metadata research, the keywords, setting everything up. And then we also do a heavy consultation on the promotional bit. And we also, if you start early, we include 3 months of book coaching just because we want to be there on the early end to help shape your book, provide that feedback, provide that support, because it's so important and so much easier as the editors to come in when we've been working with you from the beginning of the book. So we just throw that in as part of our package. But I've seen them anywhere from, I don't know, 7,000 maybe to 20,000 plus. So just kind of
Yeah.
depends.
Thank you. Yeah, it all really depends. I looked at a lot of different options. One of the options was working with a woman that would help you with your book, take you on this retreat. And I want to say it was like $50,000 or something like that. So that was really interesting as well. And then it was a hybrid model with some editing and things like that. But I loved what you had to offer at Burning Soul, primarily because that's my genre of writing that I am doing. So I wanted to ask just a random question that people might be asking. What, for a nonfiction book or like a teaching memoir or something like that, what is the average page numbers or word count?
For a memoir, you're usually
Mm-hmm.
gonna look anywhere between more of the 50 to 80,000 range. I
Okay.
usually say that 60,000 is usually about a sweet
Okay.
spot, 60 to 70.
Okay. And then fiction books just vary. Is that right? I know you don't usually, do you do any fiction too? Do you do fiction, Cindy?
Don't do fiction
Okay.
in this business, but I'm also on the creative writing faculty with Right Space Houston, which is a nonprofit here that helps local authors get an MFA quality education without paying for an MFA. And I work with a lot of fiction writers there. So the standard word count that you'll see is 70 to 80,000, although it's also genre dependent. So for like a science fiction book or fantasy fiction, maybe 100,000 to 120,000
More.
words is
Yeah.
okay. Please don't do that if it's any other kind of book, because getting over 400, 500 pages, and there's no reason to even work that hard on something when people aren't going to get all the way there. But they do get all the way there on those certain kinds of books. So it's a little bit genre dependent as well.
So my last question, well, second to last question is I want to hear more about ghostwriting now. Cindy, this is something that you're really big on, and Lauren, you do it as a piece to your business. What is that, and when would I use that? Before we kind of wrap up and learn a little bit more of how to connect with you and any final words that you had. But I want to hear about ghostwriting.
Yeah, so ghostwriting is a good fit for people who process verbally, because we will be doing many hours of interviews with me asking you questions. So if you're someone who processes verbally, and I've worked with clients who maybe have ADHD or dyslexia, so there could be other reasons that writing is especially difficult for them. And then also people who are high-powered, busy executives. I'm ghostwriting for an executive director of the largest national nonprofit of in their field right now, and he's just too busy to write his book himself. And so, we're lucky he finds time to, meet with me to discuss his edits. And I even had to adapt the way I work with him to be on more calls one-on-one to actually get him to look through the drafts and get changes made. But that's it, like when it comes to ghostwriting, that's the highest level that I work with people at. And it's also starts at $70,000. So the price point kind of also matches who it's for. That, and then for people that ghostwriting is not for, it's probably a mix of price point and desire to write the book yourself. So if you do have time to improve your writing skills and actually do it, you just don't want to, then maybe like a book coach is a really smart way to get some expert help and not really kind of put yourself in a bad financial situation, which I never want people to do. So the time that you would hire a ghostwriter really can vary. Usually I find that my clients have tried to get started themselves and saw that it was overwhelming. And a lot of times I'll get on a discovery call and I'll say, oh, so you said in your intake form you've got a little bit written already, about how much? And sometimes it's like 1 page, 4 pages, and they just keep going over and over, maybe one chapter. They just keep rewriting the introduction and they're like, I just can't. And so I think that that's a good place to hire a ghostwriter, because you've already learned how hard it is and that you don't want to do it yourself. And the other place is if you just see that it's taking too long because you don't have time, because your time is better spent on other income generating, business running activities, then that's a time to look at outsourcing it, just to make sure it gets done and to make sure your attention is on the most important things.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, Lauren, if you had anything else to add to ghostwriting, and if not, any final words, and I'd love to hear how we can connect with you, and please share with us about your book that I think it's still, is it still pre-ordered, The Stories That Make Us?
Oh no, that's out now. Came
That's
out.
out. Okay. Okay.
As far as ghostwriting, I mean, it was one of those things that Cindy, I don't know if it was the same way, but I never thought I would be a ghostwriter until someone asked me to write their book for them. And then the whole process ended up being one of my just favorite parts of my life, honestly. Like the intimacy that gets established with the writer, knowing that they trust you with their stories, with their thoughts, being able to really help them verbalize things that they weren't able to do before. And there's something so healing and freeing for the author as well when they go through it. It's such a beautiful process. It is, like Cindy was saying, it's definitely for those who don't have the time, the energy, the interest in doing it themselves. And it is a higher price point for sure. My rates start around the same as Cindy's. But the thing is, a lot of people will spend that money on a car and not even think twice about it. A car that they'll be done with in another 5 years before they're swapping it out for another. You're looking at a book that's going to be around for the rest of your life, a book that can change lives, a book that opens up doors that weren't previously open for you. It is a worthwhile investment, whether ghostwriting, investing in the editing, the publishing, whatever it might be. You have to see the long-term impact of this book and the legacy that you're investing in for you. So I think it's honestly one of the best things that you can pour into because of what it can do for you when it's done right, which is why these services are out there. But ghostwriting is a
So
beautiful,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
As far as final thoughts, I just want to go back to, if you guys have a book idea that landed on you, I'm really big in this. It chose you for a reason. It chose you because of your experiences, of who you are today, of your life that you went through. And to me, it's such an honor that a lot of people will just disregard and say, oh, like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I got a C in English class, like we're so used to being conditioned by what we can't do and all of that. But man, if the idea chose you, it chose you for a reason. And it's more than just you. It has to do with the people that you're meant to impact, the people you're meant to help, the people you're meant to empower, to inspire. And you have to know that it selected you because you are good enough to bring it to light. You are qualified to bring it to light, and you might need some help in getting there. And that's okay. That's why we were all put in this world, so we can help each other do those things that help other people, So it's okay to get the help, but just know that you are selected. And that's a pretty big deal. So don't give up. Keep going. If you're running into any obstacles, there is help, and that's in the form of people around you. So, last thoughts, you can follow us at Burning Soul Press, Instagram, Facebook. You can also follow me personally at Lauren Eckhart Writes. And we have information on our website pages, laureneckhartwrites.com and burningsoulpress.com, as far as different options to be able to work with us, and also showing specifically the type of book stories that we work with. Again, for me, it goes back to life journeys and your life stories that can be used to inspire and empower other people.
Thank you so much. I love that final word. That was so empowering. And you mentioned that there's a guide that we can purchase from you around self-publishing too. Is that from Burning Soul Press?
Yep, that's on
Okay.
burningsoulpress.com. And then if you go to our programs page, it should be on there.
Okay. And tell us the 20, 30 seconds about your newest book and how we can order it.
So I did put out my own memoir. It's called The Stories That Make Us, and it's really about rewriting the narratives in our lives, the ones that have held us back from who we were actually born to be, when we're influenced by things that happen to us, people that have happened to us, and we walk around carrying these false stories that don't need to be there. And so really taking a look at what those are for me and my memoir, but I hope that it challenges other people to do that as well. And if we flip the lens on that, what is that actually for you instead? So for me, like, shame was a very powerful theme. in my life. And it was really looking at how do we turn shame into power, power to help other people, power to stand stronger. So that's what it's about.
I love that. And do we just go to your website to order it?
Yep, you can go to laureneckartwrites.com and
Beautiful.
special editions left. So
So cool. Everybody should pick up a copy.
thank you.
And what last words would you like to share, Cindy? You said something earlier of using everyday language that stands the test of time. I don't know if you want to share about that or anything else. And then how can we connect with you?
Well, so using everyday language that stands the test of time. This is about avoiding little turns of phrase that are popular today, but are going to date your book. So slang from social media, that kind of thing, unless you're putting it in quotation marks. But even then, it's really going to it's going to put your book in a certain era, and it's going to have a shorter shelf life than if you avoid those kinds of slang. And even I encourage my clients not to make reference to living figures or current events that are still unfolding. Why? Well, there's a business book that I worked on, and he wanted to use Elon Musk as an example. I mean, this was 5 years ago, but I was like, I don't know. And then he was like, oh, yeah, because all these things. And I'm like, okay, it's your book. You know more than me. I'm not the expert in this. And, I cringe now when I know he does too. Um, so avoiding that, and then also avoiding technical jargon. Unless you're writing a book for other experts in your field, the more that you can break down all the technical information into words that your reader would already speak and be familiar with, the more you're making space for them to be at home in your book and feel like there's a place for them in your book and that this book is for them. And more people will be able to read it and understand it, just period. The one other thing I wanted to say is I think I didn't completely thread the needle on book marketing and traditional publishing. So with the traditional publisher, they will offer some help. They may give you a publicity consultant. They may throw an event for you here and there. They may make some introductions. Your literary agent will probably do some of that using their connections to help you get your book out there. But at the end of the day, you are going to be the marketing manager of your book. And that's true with traditional publishing or self-publishing. And with traditional publishing, you might think you're going to save money on a book editor. Lauren just mentioned that it's pricey. It is, and for a reason. It's a lot of work, and it takes a really qualified expert to do that work. But I've worked with 2 authors who had traditional publishing deals, and they were assigned an editor, and all the editor did, which was all they were supposed to do, was send their manuscript back with all these comments marked up. And then they were like, I thought they were going to make it pretty for me. So if you think you can just write your masterpiece and then the book publisher is going to just make it all pretty for you, it's not how it actually works. And often they'll even hire their own ghostwriter. It's not, if you're Prince Harry, maybe you get assigned one from your publisher, but don't count on that either. And
and how can we connect with you?
Yes, at Cindy Childress PhD. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I invite you all to take my Discover Your #1 Bestselling Author Personality Quiz. You'll find it at cindychildress.com/quiz.
Yay, I love that. I'm hopping on there right now to take that quiz, and everybody should go and order a copy of Lauren's book as well. So I'm just so honored that both of you came on the podcast today and shared so much wisdom, because it's not just, oh, I write and I'm done, or the writing process is even messy. The marketing process, you have to put in the work, and the pre-planning and pre-work to build the audience is so important in advance. And reaching out for help to someone like Cindy or someone like Lauren for coaching or for editing, and how important that is. There's so many steps to it, but the end result is like what Lauren said. It's taking the focus off of us and remembering that it's for the good of other people and the impact that we're going to make. Anytime we get caught up in our head, am I good enough? It's like, yes, I am, because God put this on my heart and I'm going to impact so many people with this message. So thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We appreciate you being a part of it.
Thank you. It's been fun.